But you can go back to earlier cases having to do with regulations in the interest of the public health, even when they burden religious practice. I think there's a famous one called Prince versus Massachusetts from back in the 40s. So you'll thank God it doesn't come up all that often, but I think the precedent that we have do support the ability of governments to issue orders like this and to apply them to gatherings, even if those gatherings are religious in nature.
I just question whether this is going to be more fodder for the culture wars, more division, science versus religion, and, some pastors even saying that it's political persecution.
Yeah, that's a risk, and I'm keeping an eye on that as well. I do think that it's important, a little perspective that is that the vast majority of religious leaders and religious communities are, even though it's painful this time of year in particular, are complying with these orders. It's a very small subset of groups and leaders who have kind of thumbed their nose or, called into question the scientific basis. My sense is there's a pretty broad consensus that at least for now, as a temporary measure, these limits on gathering are appropriate. So my hope is that it won't create this kind of bad feeling and skepticism, and also that religious believers who do have plenty of reasons to complain sometimes about burdensome government regulations. As someone who cares a lot about religious freedom, one doesn't want to cry wolf. There are threats to religious freedom out there, but this probably, at least in my personal judgment, is not the most glaring one. This strikes me as being an occasion of where the regulations are reasonable and sensitive to the burdens that are being put on religious believers.
Thanks, Rick. That's Richard Garnett, a professor at the University of Notre Dame Law School. And that's it for this edition of Bloomberg Law. Remember, you can listen to all the latest legal news on our Bloomberg Law podcast. You can find them on iTunes, SoundCloud, or at bloomberg.com/podcast/law. I'm Jim Grosso. Thanks so much for listening. And remember to tune to the Bloomberg Law Show weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, this is Jenny from the Jenny McCarthy Show on Stars 109. One of my favorite online exclusive channels to enjoy at home is SiriusXM's Chill Instrumental. Just say, hey Google, play Chill Instrumental on SiriusXM, and the smooth sound of deep house music fills every room while I relax and hang with my family. Helping with homework, prepping a great meal, or just flopping on the sofa is even better with the music I'm into playing in the background. Want to hear your SiriusXM favorites at home? Just say, hey Google, to get started.
You could be watching The Surfers in Santa Monica.
You go anywhere that's near the water. You always find shell jewelry, don't you feel like?
Or admiring the yachts near Monte Carlo.
What is it about a big boat?
There's no telling where or when you'll want to access the latest business news.
It's all about international standards.
People don't understand the flows, domestic, international.
We want to dig into whether this is simply an interest rate story.
So we make it all available, anytime and everywhere.
What did it mean for your industry?
Is this driven largely by liquidity in the marketplace?
What would be the economic impact of such closures? Do you think money's just going to rush into EM?
They mostly sidestep the latest revelations.
The service sector in Europe stands to be worse hit than the manufacturing sector.
What is the biggest shock that you're worried about at the moment? Demand side or supply side?
Bloomberg on SiriusXM, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
What can they do to survive?
Bloomberg.
It's hugely informative stuff.
The world is listening.
This is an important message from the CDC about coronavirus. Those at higher risk must take extra precautions. You're at higher risk if you're over 65 or if you have any serious underlying medical conditions like chronic lung disease, asthma, heart disease, diabetes, or undergoing cancer treatment. Protect yourself. Stay 6 feet away from other people or stay home if you can. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information from the CDC. That's coronavirus.gov. Brought to you by the CDC and the Ad Council.
This is an important message from the CDC about coronavirus. Listen to and follow the directions of your state and local authorities. If you feel sick, stay home. Do not go to work. If your children are sick, keep them at home. If someone in your household has tested positive for the coronavirus, keep the entire household at home. Do not go to work. In all cases, contact your medical provider. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information from the CDC. That's coronavirus.gov. Broadcasting nationwide at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio on SiriusXM Channel 119.
Special report, coronavirus update. Los Angeles has added new rules and restrictions. Correspondent Paul Verkaman says LA's mayor made the announcement today.
He's requiring anybody who goes out to an essential business to wear a face mask. And the workers at those businesses, such as a grocery store, must also be wearing some sort of facial covering. And then in LA County, they have extended this ban on gathering in public places to public parks, also off attending church.
Michigan's shelter-in-place order now includes a ban on traveling from home to home to visit friends, relatives, and vacation properties. Correspondent Ryan Young is in Detroit.
They're going to try to see if they can flatten the curve here because obviously the numbers were still going up in this area. The hospitals have been dealing with more patients than they can handle in a lot of places. And we do know that some hospital staff has also tested positive for the coronavirus.
The United States now has more than 522,000 coronavirus cases, and the death toll has topped 20,000. I'm Ann Cates. The epidemic is having an outsized impact on cancer patients.
The American Cancer Society is finding ways to keep life and treatment as normal as possible for cancer patients during the pandemic.
There'll be a series of hospitals and treatment centers that will have transportation grants that will allow them to get patients to treatment if the treatment is actually still occurring.
Jeff Bayless with ACS says the virus is limiting treatment for some patients, but the organization has also implemented video conferencing for patients to speak with doctors or nurses from home about any challenges or questions that may come up. Clayton Neville, Dallas.
Forecasters say residents of the Deep South from Louisiana through the Tennessee Valley need to be braced for the possibility of severe weather on Easter Sunday. 4.5 million people may be in the path of strong thunderstorms and possible tornadoes, plus 70-mile-an-hour winds and tennis ball-size hail tomorrow. I'm Ann Cates.
Please listen. This is important. Anyone can be affected by the prescription opioid crisis. If you think you've been hurt by Purdue or its prescription opioids like OxyContin, you may be entitled to compensation as part of Purdue's bankruptcy, but you have to file a claim. Claims may include overdose, death, substance use disorder, lost wages, and neonatal abstinence syndrome. A confidential claim can be filed by individuals, a legal guardian, by survivors or relatives of people who have died or are disabled. The deadline to file a claim is June 30th, 2020, or you will lose your right to file a claim. For more information, visit PurduePharmaClaims.com, or you can call toll-free 1-844-217-0912. That's 1-844-217-0912. Paid for by Prime Clerk, LLC.
Several late-night talk shows have been back on the air with hosts doing interviews from their homes and guests on video connections. When Saturday Night Live returns to television tonight, there may be several ways to broadcast the show without violating social distancing guidelines.
While the coronavirus pandemic was in its very early stages in the U.S., Saturday Night Live poked fun at the president's coronavirus task force.
President Trump has put me in charge of the coronavirus, even though I don't believe in science.
It's not clear how much fun the cast will have tonight at the expense of a pandemic that has taken thousands of lives here. A statement from NBC said the show would feature new original content, but did not say whether it would be live or taped or a mix of the two. Steve Kastenbaum, New York.
Apple and Google have teamed up. New software the companies will add to phones would make it easier to use Bluetooth wireless technology to track down people who may have been infected by coronavirus carriers. I'm Ann Cates.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg Newsroom. New York's fatalities remain high with another 783 deaths reported today. Although Governor Andrew Cuomo says hospitalizations and admissions to intensive care continue to slow. New York's number of fatalities, now over 8,625, pushed the U.S. above Italy for the world's highest number of deaths from COVID-19 globally. Here's Governor Cuomo.
Terrible news is the number of lives lost. 783 yesterday. That is not an all-time high, and you can see that the number is somewhat stabilizing, but it is stabilizing at an horrific rate.
Still, he called now the end of the beginning phase of the disease's spread. Cuomo also said there has not been a decision on whether to close New York City schools for the rest of the academic year. That contradicts earlier comments by Mayor Bill de Blasio. He didn't close them, and he can't open them, Cuomo said. Earlier today, de Blasio said he had decided to close the schools through the academic year.
So it's not an easy decision. It's not a decision that is satisfying for all of us who have devoted so much of our time to trying to make sure our kids got the very best education. But it is the right decision.
Cuomo said he wanted a decision on school closings to be coordinated ideally with neighboring states, Connecticut and New Jersey. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy announced new rules and restrictions for public transportation today. As part of his continued use of executive orders, Murphy will cut New Jersey transit trains and buses to 50% capacity and will require employees and riders to wear face coverings. All this takes effect 8 p.m. Monday night. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Susanna Palmer. This is Bloomberg.
This is Masters in Business with Barry Ritholtz on Bloomberg Radio.
My special guest this week is John Mousseau. He is the CEO and Director of Fixed Income at Cumberland Advisors, a bond shop that manages over $3.5 billion in assets. He is a chartered financial analyst and has his master's in economics from Brown. John Mousseau, welcome. Still have a